Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So, hi everyone. My name is Renata Stankowska. I'm the Assistant Director for Membership Services here at ODK. And today we'll be welcoming Jessica Roffe, who's here with us from Career Beginnings, and will talk to us about different career development tips. She is also an ODK member from University of Maryland, College Park. So, I'll turn it over to you, Jessica.
Thank you for having me, and thanks to everyone for being here. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can see it. Great. So I'm here to talk about it's a new year, new career, smart strategies for a successful job search today. And I'm hoping it'll be interactive, at least in the chat. So if everyone could get ready to submit some of your thoughts, I'd love to hear them throughout the presentation. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to add them in the chat as well. And we'll also have some time for Q&A at the end. So what we're going to go over today is starting with just today's job market and understanding a little bit about what's going on, and then how can you be strategic in today's job market. So starting with crafting your personal brand. So how can you stand out and show your unique skill set to employers? And then how can you build your online brand based on what your personal brand is? And then once you have that, how can you go about building and expanding your network? And then if you're going to apply to jobs online, how can you be strategic about that so you don't get lost in the sea of other job applicants? And then finally, making sure that if you do get a call, that you're prepared for that interview throughout your job search as well. So a little bit of background on me to start. I'm here today representing my business, Career Beginnings, but I also work full-time at the University of Maryland. I started my business in 2014 to provide college and career prep for high school, college students, and recent college grads. I was noticing a lot of people needed some more one-on-one guidance and were kind of lost in terms of what to do after school or their resume or LinkedIn, personal brand. So I provide both one-on-one coaching to clients through weekly virtual meetings, and I do workshops like this one. So thanks to ODK for having me. And then I do full-time still work at the University of Maryland for a program called Quest, where we bring business, engineering, and science students together to work on team-based projects. And then some of my amazing students helped get me inducted into ODK in 2019. So I'm a proud ODK member. And I did also attend University of Maryland. I have my bachelor's in psychology, and then I attended Columbia's Teachers College for my master's in higher education. And then during COVID, I became certified as a career services provider, which is something I wanted to do after developing this passion for career development over my time at Maryland. So let's jump into things. So today's job market, I'm sure you all know, it is not the best, especially for early career recent grads. So companies are predicting it'll be one of the worst in 5 years for new grads. And new grads are kind of struggling to break in certain industries, especially. And that has a lot of factors, but as everyone knows, AI is one of those. And then a lot of companies have had tons of layoffs, and sometimes the youngest on the totem pole get cut first, right? But not all hope is lost. Recent grads can get a job even in a challenging labor market, and not just recent grads, but everyone. And I think a lot of the tips I'll share today are relevant across anyone job searching from recent grads to later on in their career. So let's jump into what is one of the first things you could do to stand out. Um, as you can see from this graph, so Ashby is one of the recruiting agencies, and this is showing who gets an interview. Only 3% of inbound candidates, meaning just cold applying online, are getting interviews right now. They're really all coming from referrals, agencies, somebody internal at the company, or being sourced. And sourced means maybe they're going out and finding you, meaning you have to have a strong personal brand, a strong online presence that someone can do that. Because just cold applying and waiting is really not the strategy that's working these days. So let's talk about that personal brand. If you want to put in the chat, if anyone has ideas, what do you think? What is a personal brand? Wait and see. Your reputation. Yes. Thank you, Michelle. Any other thoughts? Yep, an extended elevator pitch. Great. So we're going to talk about both of those things. So think about a personal brand as the story people tell about you when you're not in the room. Definitely aligns with reputation. And yep, descriptiveness and distinctiveness, exactly. So you want your personal brand to be authentic. It is unique to you, clear. Like anybody should understand pretty easily what your brand is, and then consistent. It's not something that changes no matter the situation. If you think of the brands that you know that are really strong, they all hold these values too, authentic, clear, and consistent. So your personal brand will help employers understand what makes you unique, differentiated, and valuable to them. And that has to be clear off the bat, or else they're not going to waste their time on you. So you have to think about throughout everything you're doing in your job search how to make this super clear right away. The personal brand demonstrates that you're confident, you're self-aware, and you're professional. You've really taken the time to think about who you are and what you're going to be bringing to employers. If you know what it is, you'll be able to open the right doors because it'll match what is unique about you, and it'll help you easily facilitate conversation and also help people remember you. If you are that person that stands out, and you all can think of someone you know who has a really strong personal brand, right? It's obvious what they care about, what they stand for, and people will remember them super easily because of that. But this isn't something that just comes naturally. You have to think of yourself as the chief marketing officer of you, and you have to put effort into building your personal brand. So today we'll talk about how to do that. So someone mentioned the sort of extended elevator pitch. So here's kind of the formula I recommend for if you're gonna write your personal brand statement or your extended elevator pitch. First, just give some general background on who you are, then what you do well, and then where you're headed or the value that you can bring or you want to head towards. So let's go into some examples. So for who I am, if you're a current student in college, it could be you're a junior majoring in psychology with an interest in understanding how people make decisions and how that applies to workplace culture. And you can see another example here, but that's just the general basic information about yourself and your interests. Then what you do well, think about an actual example you can give here. So the first one is I bring strengths in organization and attention to detail, demonstrated through coordinating and managing logistics for a 100-person charity event for my sorority. So you always want to back up anytime you're saying you have a strength with an actual example right off the bat, and that is another way they can remember you. And then where do you want to go? So I'm excited about applying these skills in an entry-level psychology-related role where I can support program delivery, etc. I won't read it all, but you have to have a strong direction and understanding of what's next for you, so that someone can clearly understand, okay, this person understands themselves. This person knows what they're going to be bringing to the market. So I want to give you some time if you all want to take a few minutes to think about this for yourself. So let's go back to number one. So that's who I am. So if you have a piece of paper or a Google Doc or anything, you could just think about this for a minute or two. Think about who I am. You could even just put some bullets down. I'll give you like 30 seconds. The next one is what I do well. What are strengths that you know you bring to an organization? What are some ways that you get complimented on by your managers? Okay, and then the last one is where I'm headed and what value I can bring. Where do you want to apply your skills? Be as specific as possible here. All right, so you have that framework now. I don't want to take too much time, but hopefully you have a few notes down and can expand on those after this. So now that you have that, any ideas for where you might want to use it in your job search? Does anyone want to put any ideas in the chat? LinkedIn bio, yes. In your resume and your cover letter, perfect. If you have an online website or an e-portfolio. Yep, when you're in an interview and they say, tell me about yourself. Connecting with folks from an organization you're interested in, right? So if you're trying to make a connection in interviews, these are great ideas. So we talked about LinkedIn about section or your bio, and then the header also. So boiling down your overall personal statement into some keywords to put into your header on LinkedIn. And then we talked about interviews. Top of your resume, it's a great idea to have a personal brand statement rather than a summary, something that right off the bat will give someone an idea of what you want to be working towards. I'll show you examples of that. And then informational interview. So if you're trying to connect with someone at an organization, you can give them that short statement about yourself and then ask for a call with them. And then we talked about elevator pitches. So you guys hit the nail on the head. So let's first talk about LinkedIn, building that online brand. Does anyone have any ideas? How are recruiters using LinkedIn right now? Again, you can put in the chat. Yep, finding talent for their companies, checking your work history on your profile, definitely. If you remember back to the graph I showed you at the beginning, a lot of them were sourcing talent directly, right? They weren't waiting for people to apply. So that's why you want to have your personal brand very clear on your LinkedIn profile. A lot of recruiters have something called LinkedIn Recruiter that allows them to search for candidates using different filters and keywords. So you want to have your profile show up when they do that. And then they might directly message you if you look like a promising candidate. So again, your profile has to be up to date so that you have all of your work history and all of your skills tagged on there. And I'll show you how to do that in a second as well. And yes, recruiters can definitely still find you if you don't pay for premium. A lot of career coaches in the industry aren't sold on the benefits of premium. It's very expensive and really not super necessary. So just a regular LinkedIn account is totally fine. So, oops, go back. Recruiters will also promote jobs and opportunities. So you can be following companies and recruiters that you are interested in. And I can show you how to do that too in a little bit. And then not just students, but any profile. So reviewing profiles. When you have your LinkedIn on your resume, they probably are going to go find you on LinkedIn and they want to see that you're an active user because that indicates that you care about your professional development. So make sure that you're posting on there. It doesn't look like you haven't had any activity in the past year on there, right? They want to know that you're active and you care about your professional presence and your online brand. So make sure that you're doing things to show them that. I'll give you some ideas. So we talked a little bit about inbound applications. This graph shows that inbound application volume has been tripling. So they are just getting so many more applications for every job these days. And it's too much. It's too many to look through. So they'd honestly rather source talent on their own a lot of the time. So just know that you're competing with triple the amount of people you used to compete with, probably due to AI, when you're just cold applying to jobs, which is also part of the reason why that's really just not the right way to go these days. So the first thing you want to do with your LinkedIn profile is make sure that you have a custom URL. So you just click on edit your custom URL on the top right of your profile, and you can make it your first and last name. And then you also want to make sure your profile's public visibility is on so that anybody can find you. Some people have one of these turned off and don't even realize, but you want to make sure everything on your profile is visible, especially your profile picture. So just make sure you go in there and check that. And again, that was just by clicking at the front of your profile. You just click on Edit Public Profile and URL on the top right. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you have a strong headshot and background photo. Profiles with public headshots get 14 times more views, according to LinkedIn research. So you definitely want to have a strong professional headshot. And you also want to work on your background, which is where I have my business logo here. You want it to be something that tells about your brand. So whether that's an interest you have, a hobby, where you live, but something you want them to know. And you don't want it tied to your current company. Your LinkedIn profile is you, right? You're the chief marketing officer of you. So make sure that you're infusing it with your personal brand and not tying it to your company, especially if you're trying to go elsewhere. And then you can find pre-made online backgrounds on websites like linkedinbackground.com, or you could just make your own on Canva or search for a photo on Google and then crop it in the right size. But those are some ideas for how to make sure you have a background photo, not just a headshot. Now, the headline is what's right under your name. And this is another way to make sure that everyone knows your personal brand right off the bat because you have 220 characters here to put keywords. And I often see a lot of people not taking advantage of all of those characters, but that's a big missed opportunity because this is something people see no matter what you do on LinkedIn. It's always right below your name. So it goes with you wherever. So don't just say I'm a marketing student at something university or I work in data science at Google. You want to have way more context here and a lot of keywords about your personal brand and use all characters. So here's some examples here. And you can see the one that I have. You could also have a sentence in there or a phrase. So mine is helping college students and recent grads turn uncertainty into career confidence. You could think of something like that, but you want to think about look at the job descriptions you're applying to. What are some of the keywords in there and make sure that if you have those skills, those are in your headline. The About section is your chance to show your story in first person. So you want to make sure you have this. Some people don't even have one. All you have to do is go and add it to your profile. And you want to break it up into 3 or 4 paragraphs, or maybe some bullet points so that it's not one big chunk. But you want to tell your story and give more context to your resume and kind of why you're in the career you're in, why you're interested in what you're interested in. So you want to think about maybe talking about your past, your present, what are you doing now, and your future. Where do you want to go? So expanding upon that personal brand statement that you already wrote before. And then also think about your about section. There's usually about 4 lines before somebody has to click dot, dot, dot and expand it. So those 4 lines are super important because you want to catch their attention and prompt them to click on the dots. So think about what do you have at the way beginning of your about section. Experiences, this is where you add your past work history. So you want to make sure that each of them has a logo if possible. So if they have a page on LinkedIn, then you'll be able to add their logo. And you also want to tag skills. So if you see this little gem here, this is where you can tag as many skills as you want for every single position. And this is another way that people could be searching for you. So you want to make sure you have as many skills across your profile as possible. You want to have a short description for each of your experiences. It can be similar bullets to what's on your resume, or you can make it into more of a sentence format. And then you're going to do the same in your education section and projects. Think about what industry you're in and what might be relevant. Like if you're an engineer, you might want to have a whole project section on your resume to show the different projects that you've done. If you're in nonprofits, you could have a volunteer section on your LinkedIn profile. So there are different things that you can add depending on what you want to signal to employers about yourself, and then make sure that you're actually tagging skills for each of those. Once your profile is built out, you also want to think about building your brand through thought leadership and reflections. So you can generate content, you can post if you just presented at a conference, if you finished a group project, if you earn some kind of certificate or award. It's always a great idea to make a post on LinkedIn because, again, that's a way to signal to your network that you're invested in your professional development. So if somebody looks you up, they'll see that you recently posted that and they'll learn more about you and your brand too. So it's another way to build on your brand. So here's some examples of how I've generated content, just posting some advice for college students and then also reflecting on things that I've done. You can also follow and engage with others. So you want to comment with insight and add to the knowledge sharing on LinkedIn. So you want to follow people in your industry and comment on their posts. You can join different groups that are interesting to you. And then think about consistency more than frequency. You want to maybe give yourself like once a week, I'll try to comment on three posts or something like that. Give yourself a deadline and a goal so that you can actually follow through with some of these things. So this is all goes into building your online brand. But if you have really spent time doing that, then you're really ready to network, especially on LinkedIn, because people will see that you're invested in your profile. But networking doesn't have to be only online or on LinkedIn. Remember this phrase that a lot of people always say, your network is your net worth, and it's really true, especially these days. So you have to put time and effort into building your network in order to figure out what's next for you. Here are some recent articles about networking, and so many people are just scared to do it, which is holding their career back. But 70 to 80% of positions are filled through the hidden job market or jobs that aren't publicly advertised. So, by building those professional connections, you might be top of mind when someone is trying to fill a position. So, you always have to be continuing to meet people and build your network. And then this is a Business Insider article about how to land a job in 2026. It's shared that candidates with a referral have a 10 times better shot at landing a job than cold applying. So you really never know if you had a great networking conversation, that person might be willing to refer you to their company. And they often get perks from their company by bringing people in. So they're not really just like doing something, you're not asking them for something selfish. Like they might get something in return for being able to refer a great person to their company. So really think of networking just as simply having conversations, making connections, and building relationships. The goal is to exchange information, not to ask for a job, right? But to learn more about what they do and where you could go next in your career. It's a little uncomfortable at first, but the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll be. So here are some reasons not to be nervous. Most people remember what it's like to feel lost and are happy to help if they can. And most people are still lost in their career, right? They're working professionals, but they're trying to figure it out too, what's next for them. So they understand that it's good to give back and help people. People also like to talk about themselves and get affirmation that someone else shows that is valuing their work and their experience. So by reaching out to someone, they probably will feel special, and you just have to emphasize why them. What is it about them that you're really curious about, and make them realize that they should definitely give you that time. They also get to do their field a favor by encouraging the right kind of young people to get involved. And then just always remember if they don't answer, they might just be busy, and that's okay. You're not going to get 100% of people you reach out to respond. You probably will get more like 10 to 20%. So it is definitely a process, but if you know that going in, then hopefully you won't be as jaded if you don't get responses. So maybe just start with who you know. I mean, a lot of times you have close family or friends that you haven't really even asked them in depth about their career or about their major in college and where that led them. maybe even your parents. Like, have you really sat, if you're a current student, have you really sat down with them and understood their career path, professors, past supervisors, colleagues? So think about who you might know already that could be good to get to know better in a professional way. And then you can think about finding people through LinkedIn as well. It's a great tool. One of the ways, if you have a company in mind, is you could go to their company page and then click on the tab that says People. And this is where you can filter by many different things. So, say you're like, I really want to work at Google and I want to work abroad. Let me see who works in a certain place. You could search here. And so here you'll see all the people that have Google on their profile. And anyone who you have a connection to or a mutual connection to, that means a second degree connection, will be more towards the top. So they might be more likely to answer you if you add a note because they see you have a mutual connection. So don't just add people coldly. It's always good to send a note with it so that they have context as to why you're trying to connect with them. But if you go back up here, you can filter. So as I was saying, like say you really want to work in India, you could click on the India filter here. And then you could also filter by some other things. It's already down to 49,000 members instead of a lot more. And you can scroll down and look at different people's profiles and think about who you might be interested in connecting with and learning from. So, say you want to connect with this person, you could always send a note with your connection request. And then here are some other filters you can use. So you can see what they studied in college, what they do now, what their skills are in their profile. So say you want to find someone who does marketing, you click on that filter, and then now it's down to 3,000 members, and you can find the right person to message. If you do want to connect with students or alumni at your university, you can also go to your university's page, and there's a tab called Alumni that will allow you to see anybody who has your university in their profile under the education section, and you could connect with alumni from your university. That makes a lot of sense too because you already have an in with them. You can say, I'm also a Terp for whatever university you go to and make that connection so that they're more likely to hopefully get back to you as well. If you do want to send a message to them, just use a very simple greeting and the person's name, a one sentence introduction of yourself. So parse down that personal brand statement and offer a compliment. Why them? Um, Again, as I was saying, you want to make them feel special about why you chose them. Once you are connected to someone, you're able to send a longer message, but in that initial add a note, you can only do 200 characters. Um, oh, thank you, Maria. Maria said it is helpful, and a lot of people are putting their LinkedIn profiles in the chat. Great idea if you want to connect with each other. Um, Someone says staying in contact with past supervisors is an excellent way to ensure you have strong references. I love that tip. And something super underutilized on LinkedIn is the references section. So you can actually ask, sorry, the recommendations section. So you can actually ask a past supervisor to write a recommendation on your LinkedIn profile, and then you have their testimonial on your profile right under your education section. And so when you actually hear from somebody, a real testimonial, it goes a long way. So don't forget at the end of any kind of uh, job experience, internship, to try to get your supervisor to add that recommendation to your profile. Okay, great. So ODK is a LinkedIn group, and that I will definitely be joining that if I'm not a part of it yet. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so here's a quick example of a message you could send someone, and you only have 200 characters again at first, so it has to be pretty short. But I really, really like when I get a note with a connection request. I'm so much more likely to accept it because I actually understand why they're reaching out. When I just get like cold connection requests, I don't know if I should be accepting this person or not. I don't know them. So I totally recommend, as much as you can, always adding a note. One other tip I wanted to share is sometimes people just don't check their LinkedIn messages, so you want to email them instead. There are different tools to find people's emails from their LinkedIn profiles. One is called Contact Out, and it's just a Chrome extension. You can see here on the right side, it pops out, and you can get somebody's email from their LinkedIn profile. So that's another way to message them. And people are often checking their email way more than they're checking their LinkedIn profile. So if you're not getting a response on LinkedIn, you could try that. If you're able to send an email, then you can write a subject line and try to catch their attention. So here's some ideas with that. You would want to mention something specific that they've done, or they were just at, like an event you saw them at, or you want to name drop a mutual connection. And whenever I do that, it works. If I put the person's name who connected us in the subject line, so I definitely recommend this. And then mention something that you and the target have in common. So, say you both went to the same university or you're both part of the same organization. Maybe you're both in ODK, then you could put fellow ODK member looking to connect. So, that's a great tip to catch their attention as well. And then you can add your personal brand statement to your message and have a clear ask for them. You always want to come prepared to these conversations by researching the person's background and having questions ready to go. Always take the initiative to begin the conversation and introduce yourself with that personal brand statement, and really take notes and listen intently as I share. You always want to be very thankful of their time and follow up right after with a note. So I definitely recommend within 24 hours thanking the person for their time. If the conversation went well, you never know. They might at the end say, like, I'd love to keep in touch. I'm open to sharing your resume, right? So you're not asking them for a job, but they might be willing to help you out in some way. Always add them on LinkedIn if you haven't yet, and track your conversations on a spreadsheet. I'm going to show you how to do that in a little bit and give you a template, but you want to try to stay in touch, and maybe they can become a long-term mentor for you or supporter, especially if the conversation went well. You don't want it to just be a one and done thing. So be tracking these and tracking notes from each of them. So the next thing I want to talk about is if you are applying online, as you saw, it can work, but it is rare. So you want to have some strategy around it. So here's some ideas. So Business Insider recently had an article called The Hidden Power of Applying Quickly to Your Dream Job. So there is an advantage to applying early, especially within 24 to 48 hours of a job being posted. So you definitely want to set up job alerts. So if you search for a certain type of job on Google or LinkedIn or Indeed, there's always a tab you can filter or click on so that you get alerts for that same search if any new jobs are posted. And then within 24 to 48 hours, you want to be ready to apply to it. And then always apply directly on the company website rather than through a third party like LinkedIn or something. So, as much as you can, make sure that you're doing that because those are often where recruiters check first for applications. I also mentioned this before, adding your personal brand statement to your resume. So think about putting a summary at the top that gives those keywords about where you want to go with your next job, is easily understandable and scannable and skills focused. Because that's going to be the first thing they see right under your name on your resume. And you want them to quickly understand who you are and what you're aiming towards. So think about what this could mean for you. And it could be even more specific than these if you have examples or tools. Like if you're a computer science person and you have specific tools that you're really good at, put the tools in here. So think about, again, matching your resume to the job description. It's all about being keyword infused. A lot of companies these days will use ATS, which is applicant tracking systems, which will help them sort all of the resumes that they're getting by keywords and which ones match the keywords in the job description the most. And then they'll review those the earliest. So those will go towards the top of their stack. So again, you just want to always be infusing keywords throughout your resume. And then you want to customize it, of course, for each job. Here is an article on not getting interviews. 8 experts reveal how to customize your resume to land the job. So it shows that you'll pass. I was just talking about this, but you'll be able to pass through the ATS system if you reflect the language used in the job posting. And then you always want to be able to connect the dots as quickly as possible on why they should hire you, not just for the role, but for the organization as a whole. So think about that in your cover letter what can you learn about the company and their mission statement that resonates with you? Why is it that company that you really want to work at? And so many people are not tailoring their cover letters. They are just having AI write it for them, and then the recruiters are getting the same cover letter 100 times. So if you are the person that does take the time to optimize your cover letter, you could really stand out. Now, all recruiters don't agree on this. Some of them really aren't not reading cover letters these days. They don't have the time for it. Others still love cover letters because they know how much they can learn about a candidate and it can help them stand out. So if you do have the option, I always say to go for it and to make sure that you do write your cover letter. Someone said, do you have any tips on how resumes should be formatted now? I've definitely read that two-page resumes are really acceptable these days. You want to format your resume in terms of most recent experience first and most relevant experience first. And you want to break it up into different sections that relate to the job and again can be keyword infused. So again, with that engineering example, you might want to have a engineering project experience section. Okay, you don't have to have just very vague titles for your sections like experience, work, but think about how you can signal with your section headers the type of experience you have. Again, it needs to be at a quick glance. Oh, I understand who this person is right away. So I would definitely suggest that. And then I do suggest putting skills towards the top of your resume, especially if you're applying to a technical role. So make sure that right under your probably name, education, well, name, personal brand. If you're a more recent grad, you want to have your education towards the top. If you're probably like 5 or plus years out, you probably want to have your education more towards the bottom. And you want to have your personal brand and then your work, sorry, skills and then work. Is it possible to have a personal brand LinkedIn account and a separate account connected to a job? I need to use a corporate produced header background and we use LinkedIn post. Don't like it. Yeah, that's really interesting that a company required you to have their header background. That's really not fair because they don't own your LinkedIn profile, you do. So I would push back on that if possible. But I wouldn't recommend having two separate LinkedIns. I think that could get confusing. But if you do manage a page for a company, then you could have that, and then you can also have your own personal brand. But I would own your profile as your own as much as possible. So I agree that I don't like that they were doing that as well. So on LinkedIn, you can actually signal that you're interested in a certain company. If you go to their page, it says something here. You can see interested in working with us in the future, and you can click I'm interested for up to 50 companies. So that will help a recruiter find your profile more than other people who haven't clicked I'm interested. It says that they're maybe 2 times as likely to get a message from a recruiter. So make sure you're doing that if you have companies in mind. You'll also be getting a weekly news and job digest from that company if you have clicked I'm interested. And then I definitely recommend anytime you apply to a role to try to find someone on LinkedIn to message after applying rather than just let your application sit in their system. If you can send them a message saying, I just applied to this role, emphasize why you're super interested in it and the value you're going to bring, and then hopefully, you'll catch their attention. Now, they might be getting a lot of these messages, so you might not get a response, but it's worth a try. I recently listened to a podcast with a recruiter who said that he liked getting professional video messages from people who had applied to jobs because it helped them stand out and it just made him look at their profile, look at their resume. So you can get creative in trying to catch their attention. Here's an example of the job search or networking tracker I recommend. So I made a short link here if you want to go to tinyurl.com/career beginnings tracker. You can make a copy of this and have it for yourself. But basically, it'll allow you to track what jobs you're applying to on one tab, and then on another tab, track who you're networking with and any informational interviews you have. You can put the date that you did these things, any notes from your conversations, and then you can remember to follow up. So it's a good idea to check this tracker maybe once a month and remind yourself, oh, it's been a while since I've talked to this person. Let me reach out to them again. And it'll just keep you very organized in all of the efforts you're doing related to your job search. The last thing I want to touch on is interview prep. So you may have heard of the STAR method, but this is a great way to prepare stories for your interviews. So it stands for situation, task, action, and results. Most people struggle with that results part, but that's really what companies want to know. What is the impact you're bringing to them? What are the results of the actions you take? So think about the job description. Think about what might be their criteria for evaluating candidates. Maybe it's they are looking for communication skills, they're looking for teamwork ability, right? Think of like five to eight criteria that they're probably on their back end evaluating candidates on, and come up with a story in the STAR format for each of those things, at least one. That's how you can prep for interviews. So think about teamwork. What is a situation and a task and an action you did in a teamwork setting? And then what were the specific results that you were able to bring that organization? At the end of that answer in your interview, you want to tie it to that company. I know when I'm working here, I would be doing this. So I'll be able to bring the same impact to your organization, right? Like you want to show that the results you have brought elsewhere will be relevant to their company as well. So make sure that you're having some kind of Google Doc or brainstorming sheet where you're thinking through all of the different star stories for the job specific skills that they might be asking you about in an interview. So we went through lots today, kind of the current state of the job market and how it's important to have your personal brand and build that personal brand through an online presence. Also, use it into your networking abilities. And then when you are applying online, how you can strategically apply to be recognized amongst all of the applicants, and then different methods for preparing for your interviews. So, just a little bit more about my business and what I offer. So, I do one-on-one virtual coaching for different topics such as these with college students, recent grads, high school students. And then I also offer various workshops like the one today, and here are some of the recent topics I've presented on if anyone is interested in that, and you can find more on my website as well. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. I also have my LinkedIn here if you're interested in adding me. I do post weekly career tips. I have a note on my calendar every Thursday to try to get it out and hold myself accountable. So I encourage you all to do the same thing and holding yourself accountable to posting on your LinkedIn. But thank you again. And any questions? Looking for opportunities in higher ed. There's a website called higheredjobs.com. So that's really the common website that organization or universities use to post jobs for higher ed. Other than that, just checking the university's websites. But higheredjobs.com allows you to filter by location or type of career path in higher ed. Any other questions? Chronicle of Higher Ed, yeah, great idea. I subscribe to their daily newsletter, so if you wanted to get some background on higher ed and the industry, I would definitely recommend subscribing to the Chronicle of Higher Ed as well as Inside Higher Ed. And they each send out a daily newsletter that gives you a lot of good background you can use in your interviews. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So I'll hand it back to Renata.
Thank you so much, Jessica. This was very useful, I'm sure, to everyone. So we greatly appreciate your time. And thank you all for joining us today. I will be sending out an email to everyone who registered with the recording and Jessica's information. So everyone will have additional resources to that. And you can feel free to reach out to Jessica or to anyone that you connected in the session today. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciate your time. And again, thank you, Jessica. This was great.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.